So when you walk into a slice shop in New York, you'll typically see 2 to 3 different styles of pizza. Of course, you got your classic round pie, which I've done an entire deep dive series on this channel, and I even came here to New York City at one point to try 9 slices in a single day. Now you've also typically got your Sicilian style, which is a thicker square pie. However, there's also one more style that you might typically see. You might even call it the grandmother of them all. And that's because it's called the grandma pizza. The grandma is another square pie, but it's generally quite a bit thinner than the Sicilian. And also, unlike the Sicilian, it's always topped with basil and garlic, and the sauce goes on top of the cheese. But to find out what truly makes the grandma special, and in my opinion even better than the classic New York slice, I think I need to ask an expert, which is why I'm here at Umberto's. And of the 8 or 9 other slices that I'm gonna eat today, there's a reason I decided to come here first. So this is Umberto. He's the founder and owner here at Umberto's, as you probably could have guessed. And to put it lightly, he's played a pretty big role in the history of pizza here in New York City. So Umberto and his son Gaetano were nice enough to sit down with me for a little bit to talk about their pizza. And to get it started off, I had just one burning question for him. Who invented the grandma pie?
Well, it was me and my brother Joe. We had a small pizzeria downtown Brooklyn. That was in 1964. I was in charge of the kitchen. One day I didn't know what to eat. I'm gonna make pizza for me. The first grandma pizza was made in a frying pan and I baked it. The taste was excellent. Then in 1965 we came over here. We were busy right away. And once in a while I would make the pizza for me.
So what type of cheese is this?
This is grande cheese and polio cheese. This is a special sauce.
And this has the garlic straight in the sauce?
Yeah.
Now, how long has this dough been resting for? I'm assuming you made it yesterday.
Oh, it's been resting for a day. We age all our dough, aging process. Nothing is hush. You know what I mean?
Right.
I always knew that that was a great pizza just to make for myself. And once in a while I would make that for special friends. Then one day we decided to call it Grandma's Pizza. And that's the way we began our Grandma Pizza. A little oregano and we'll put it in the oven.
And it's about 550, 575?
Yeah.
How long do you bake these for?
About 8 minutes.
Where did the inspiration come from to put the garlic on it and just to kind of make that different style of pizza that first time?
Every day I would cook something different. So that day I don't know what to cook. So I look back on my mother once in a while. She used to make pizza with tomatoes only because the cheese was not available. It was more or less the same idea, you know. The only difference than my mother had it was better tomatoes because we used to raise the tomatoes in our farm. But when you use some Marzano tomatoes ripe from the tree, it's a big difference. The grandma pizza's got first of all, it's got olive oil underneath. When we scratch, we put olive oil. We let it rest a little bit, then we scratch it again. And what I'm looking for to be a little burned on the bottom. That's the way I like it, and that's the way we make it. I got it. Perfect grandma's pizza.
Cheers. Thank you again.
Go.
Oh. Wow, yeah. Super good. The tomato sauce has like a really bright flavor to it.
Yep.
Nice and tangy. Putting the sauce on top. You get that, like you were saying, the really nice crispness on the bottom from it being well done. You can even tell the olive oil under the dough. It gives it a really nice.
Beautiful flavor.
Yeah, really good flavor. Adds to the crispness. It's not too heavy, not too greasy, obviously. Perfect type of pizza to me. It's like you could eat multiple slices, you don't feel bloated.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely see why you guys are, we're voted the best pizza around while you've been around for as long as you have.
And what also is very special about my father is that a lot of pizzerias just have that maybe one special pie. When you go to Umberto's, you got the regular pie, sling pie, grandma, deep dish, a variety of different pies, and they're all outstanding.
Yeah, you can't
You
go
know
wrong.
what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, definitely.
That's a a great quality.
So it's not often that the original version of something ends up being the best version, or at least one of the best. But here at Umberto's, I think that's definitely the case. As I told Umberto, I think his emphasis on using the highest quality ingredients possible really shows. He's using San Marzano tomatoes imported from Italy, even down to the cheese. He was telling me how he uses different brands of cheese depending on how each batch looks, which is just a detail that you don't see a lot of pizza makers really paying attention to. And the quality of the ingredients is something that I emphasize a lot in my own pizza making, which is why I always make sure to use the highest quality olive oil I can find. For me, I prefer Rosa, who is actually kind enough to sponsor this video. And when they reached out to me, I was super excited because their drizzle oil is genuinely the best olive oil I've found for topping my pizzas post-bake. I've been using it for my pop-ups pretty much ever since I got started. I was even able to find a couple videos from about a year ago, and if you look closely, you can see those Graza bottles. And I'll be the first to admit, I was a little bit skeptical of Graza when I first saw them. I kept seeing those bright green squeeze bottles all over Instagram, and I assumed it was just another sort of gimmicky brand, more focused on image than quality. But I couldn't have been more wrong. Their olive oil is a single variety, single origin oil from Spain. It's always fresh and never blended, and it's available at a very affordable price compared to a lot of the other fancy olive oil brands out there. Their drizzle oil is perfect for topping a pizza post-bake, making salad dressings, or really any other uncooked application. It's got a super bright, punchy, sort of grassy flavor to it, and I mean, just the aroma alone is really gonna amp up anything you add it to. However, Graza also offers their sizzle oil at an even more affordable price for those situations where you don't need all the nuances that the drizzle oil provides. So this one's perfect for things like oiling your pizza pan, sauteing vegetables, adding to a pizza sauce, and really any other cooked application. Now, I also mentioned these fun squeeze bottles that the oils come in, which aren't just for looks. They're completely opaque, which is gonna prevent light from reaching the oil, which is extremely important for keeping the oil fresh. And Graza also just introduced their new refill cans, which are nitrogen sealed to ensure freshness, and they're the perfect size to refill your squeeze bottles. So to get $5 off your first order of sizzle and drizzle, just go to graza.co and use the code Charlie Anderson. So thanks again to Graza for sponsoring this video, and thank you for your support. Now let's head back to the city and try some more grandma pizza. So for my first stop, I found myself in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, at a place that's become pretty well known for taking the classic New York slice and putting their own little spin on it. It's a place that I've been to before if you've seen my previous New York slice series. Best pizza. Now I've been here a few times before, and I've even gotten the grandma slice before, and it was really good, which is why I wanted to come back. But now that I've tried Umberto's, the original grandma slice, I'm really curious to see how it compares. But the star of the show here, the grandma slice, it's loaded up with sauce, which I actually really like. I'm a big fan of like a higher ratio of sauce to cheese. Obviously you can see, I mean, there's a pretty big tomato chunk on there, so they're definitely using whole tomatoes, pureeing them themselves, and it looks like they're kind of aiming not to puree them all the way. Kind of gives you that more chunky texture, which we did see at Umberto's as well. Definitely thicker than Umberto's. I would say it's about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, where Umberto's is maybe like 1/4 to maybe 1/2 an inch at the thickest point. So anyways, without further ado, let's give it a try. Another really good slice, although it is pretty significantly different from the one I had at Umberto's. The way I kind of see it, Umberto's is more of the classic, kind of bare bones, but still really high quality grandma slice, whereas this one has just a little bit more going on. Definitely heavier on the spices. I'm getting some basil, some oregano. It looks like there is some other chopped green herb on there. Could just be more basil, kind of hard to tell, maybe some parsley or something. Either way, it gives it a really nice flavor though. They're also using fresh mozzarella here, and of course, like all the pizzas at Best, they're baking in their wood-fired oven, so it's just kind of naturally gonna give it a little bit of a different effect. Also, just like Umberto's though, the garlic flavor is actually surprisingly subtle. Can't really see it on here, so maybe it's mixed into the sauce again. I know some places throw some sliced or chopped garlic on top. I'll have to do a little bit more research to figure that out, but either way, it's not too overpowering and it adds a really nice flavor. Sauce-wise, I mean, again, it's super delicious. It's got that bright flavor. I'm guessing it's probably not a cooked sauce. If it is, maybe just very lightly cooked. It does seem maybe a little less tangy than the one at Umberto's. Maybe airs a little bit more toward the sweet side instead. Also a super nice soft pillowy crumb, and it maintains that nice crispness on the bottom. This one was reheated, whereas the ones I had at Umberto's weren't, so it's hard to kind of do a direct comparison there, but I would say the undercarriage pretty similar on both. So again, really good slice. I could go on all day about it, but I've got 6 more to try today, so let's keep it moving. And that next stop is Brooklyn DOP down in Park Slope, Brooklyn. Another more sort of modern take on the grandma slice. You can see right away it's got that fresh basil on top that they put on after the bake, as well as some grated hard cheese. Can't tell if it's pecorino or maybe Parmigiano Reggiano, but kind of keeping with that trend of the more modern slice shops. Got a pretty dark char on the bottom. Usually I do like it like that, so let's see how it is. So again, another really similar slice to what I had at Best Pizza. Got that really nice soft pillowy crust, but again with that crispness on the bottom, and definitely a lot more heavily spiced. The first thing that stood out to me about this one as well is that it has a little bit of a stronger garlic flavor. I wouldn't really say it's like a bite like raw garlic has, more sort of like a roasty garlic flavor. I don't know if this is a cooked sauce maybe and it gets roasted beforehand, or if it's just from the baking in the oven that gives it that flavor, but either way, another really good slice. Kind of got like the perfect ratio of sauce to cheese in my opinion. You can see they really spread that sauce all the way across the entire top, almost to where you can't see the cheese at all, but you can definitely taste it in there. I think it's just your typical low moisture whole milk mozzarella. Looks like maybe they put some basil on before the bake as well as after, and definitely some fresh oregano. I could see it hanging there in the store on the stems, so probably using that sort of wild Sicilian type oregano. The other thing that stands out about this one is it is really well seasoned. It's maybe a little bit saltier than the others I've tried, and part of that might be because of that grated hard cheese over top. Might also just be differences in the way they season the sauce, but again, either way, really nice flavor. And honestly, of all these three that I've tried today, it's really hard to say which one I like best so far. They've all kind of just been pretty different. So I think to get a better idea of what your more typical grandma slice is, I gotta hit a few more places. And here we are just a little ways down the road, still in Park Slope, this time at Luigi's Pizza. Now, if you've seen my previous classic New York slice series, you know that I've been here before. That was my first time I visited during that series, and I didn't try the grandma slice. I only tried the classic round slice. So I'm really curious to give this one a try. You can see it's a little bit thinner than those last two slices I've tried, more kind of on par with Umberto's. Super, super crisp. I mean, there's no flop to it whatsoever. Really nice undercarriage, lots of sauce, which I've already said a couple times I do really like. So let's give it a try. Very interesting. So again, obviously it is really good. Definitely different though than all the slices I've tried so far. So it's very, very crisp. Easily the crispest of all the slices I've tried so far. Kind of similar to Umberto's, but seems like maybe a little bit more oil. But it's not necessarily a bad thing, just a little bit different. And actually it kind of seems like it's topped with a pesto type sauce. Between what seems to be maybe Parmesan cheese, very finely chopped basil, and some extra virgin olive oil. Definitely has that sort of pesto flavor to it. Also seems to be using fresh mozzarella, so we're kind of half and half on that of the four places that we've tried so far. So far it's kind of left me a little bit confused, maybe more confused than I started. Again, all really good slices, but I still just don't really have a clear concept of what a proper grandma slice actually should be. So I'm glad that I've planned several more pizzerias to visit, and all of this has me very curious to see what we're gonna find out there. All right, so I'm back in Williamsburg, this time at a place called Rosa's Pizza. Now, this is definitely the longest slice I've gotten today, for whatever that's worth. This would be like 2 slices at a lot of the other places. But first thing I noticed otherwise is it's got a combination of low moisture mozzarella as well as one small triangle of fresh mozzarella. Interesting touch, I guess. The other thing I see is for the first time today, I noticed a piece of sliced garlic there. There's not a lot of it, so I'm wondering if there's still garlic in the sauce as well. But all the other places I've tried so far have just had garlic in the sauce, or at least as far as I've noticed. Thickness wise, more similar to Luigi's and Umberto's. Maybe not quite as crisp, but let's give it a try and see what we can find out. Surprisingly, for how thin it is, the dough still has a really nice soft, pillowy texture. Probably the softest of any of the slices that I've had so far. Still has a little bit of crispness to it, nothing too crazy, even though it was reheated. But honestly, I think I kind of like this texture as opposed to the like super crisp ones that I had at some of the places. So overall though, I'm definitely getting a much clearer idea of what a proper grandma slice should be. What I'm kind of gathering is kind of the more traditional grandma slices are a little bit thinner. Nice crispness on the bottom, garlic in the sauce, generally an uncooked sauce, and basil in the sauce as well. I'm not detecting oregano on this one. Maybe there's just a little bit in there and not enough for me personally to detect, but I guess that's something that I still need to determine. And to do that, we need to head over to Manhattan to grab a couple more slices. Alright, so I'm in Manhattan for the first time on this trip here at a place called Prince Street Pizza. A lot of you probably heard of it. It's a pretty popular place these days. What they're really more known for is the Sicilian slices, which I did get a spicy vodka Sicilian. They're mostly known for their pepperoni, but the pepperoni's a little too thick for my taste. But anyways, today we're focusing on the grandma slice. Pretty thin, similar to kind of Luigi's and Umberto's. Feels like it has a much softer texture though, so I'm actually really curious to give it a try. Obviously you can see that fresh basil, nice bright tomato sauce, fresh mozzarella as well. So another point for that, but let's give it a try. So a couple things I noticed right off the bat. Number one, the garlic flavor stands out a lot more than it has on some of the previous pies. Again, it's more of a kind of roasty garlic flavor, so it's not too sharp, or it's a pretty nice flavor. The sauce, though, not quite as bright and acidic as some of the others, which generally I do like, but it's still got a really nice flavor to it. The thing that stands out to me, though, is the crust. It's probably the same crust as their Sicilians, if you've ever had that, but it's just like a really kind of soft, pillowy, I wouldn't necessarily say like super airy, but it's like, what is it like? It's almost like sort of biting into a brioche, but obviously not as rich and fatty, but it's got some decent crispness on the bottom, nothing too crazy. I feel like this dough doesn't lend itself as much to crispness as some of the other doughs I've had. If I can try to incorporate some of the characteristics of this dough into my recipe, I think I'll be pretty happy. With that said though, let's keep it moving, head on to the next place. All right, so now we're at Nolita Pizza here in Nolita, I would assume, in Manhattan, not too far from Prince Street, just a couple blocks down the road. Initial impressions with this grandma slice, definitely a little bit different than the others I've seen, namely quite a bit thicker. It's kind of more the thickness that I'm used to seeing with the Sicilian slice. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that affects the texture of the slice. Obviously a lot of spices on top, not too heavy on the sauce. Looks again just like a low moisture mozzarella. So I think that brings us to like almost like half and half between fresh and low moisture. Nice crispness and charring on the bottom. So let's give it a try. Another really good slice. I mean, crazy you could pretty much walk up to any slice shop here and you know you're getting a good one, but obviously I did also kind of curate my list to the most recommended places. Anyways, the crust to me is most similar to probably what I just had at Prince Street. Not quite as like sort of enriched feeling, but still really soft and pillowy. The best way I can describe it, the ones at Prince Street had a little bit more of a bite to it, almost like biting into a marshmallow if it were like bread. And this one sort of has that effect as well, not quite as extreme as Prince Street, but still a really nice texture. Flavor profile as well, very similar to what I've been seeing. You got the basil, you got the oregano, nice bright tomato sauce. One thing I will say though is the thickness is probably not what I'm gonna aim for personally. This doesn't seem to be kind of the standard for grandma slices. Like I said, it's a little more of like a Sicilian thickness. Obviously at like Best Pizza and Brooklyn DOP, they were a little on the thicker side as well. But those are sort of more artisan airy slices, where this one I think they just use more dough in general, and it's probably even thicker than those anyways. So again, still a really good slice, but I do think I need to keep exploring in order to determine what actually makes a proper grandma slice, at least in the style that I want to replicate. All right, so I'm here at Bleecker Street Pizza. Now this is a place that I have been before. If you remember from my previous New York Slice series, it was the very first place that I visited out here, and I'm actually sitting in the exact same spot. So for me, it's kind of a nostalgic spot, even though I wasn't particularly impressed with that slice at the time. However, they're more known for, I guess, their grandma slice. They have one, basically it's like a round pie, but they top it like a grandma. So I would assume that the grandma slice itself is kind of on par with that. It looks really good. It's kind of the thickness that I'm thinking that I'm gonna like. You know, your pretty standard toppings. You got like a chiffonade basil. You can even see the garlic in the sauce. So let's give it a try. Yeah, I mean, that is really good. Based on kind of everything I've tried so far, it seems to be pretty much your classic by-the-book grandma slice, at least the way that it's made these days. The one at Umberto's was significantly less spiced in terms of basil and oregano. Garlic as well, I suppose, but pretty much all the other slices I've tried have been a little bit heavier on those things. It's also got your combination of low moisture mozzarella and fresh mozzarella, which I'm kind of thinking is what I'll be leaning towards as well, considering that it's literally been like exactly half and half between the two. Again, perfect thickness. I could see the tomatoes that they were using in there, and it's a Stanislaus product, kind of as you'd expect with pretty much every pizzeria here in New York. Interestingly too, I'm just noticing there seems to be some onion in this sauce as well, which I hadn't really heard of. There's something here as well. Yeah, I don't know what that is, but I'll have to do some more research into that pre-prepared pizza sauce that they're using. Maybe it does have onion in there. If not, they must be making a cooked sauce and adding onions themselves. Also seems to be topped with like a grated hard cheese. Again, seems pretty standard across the board, but I do have one more place that I want to try, which based on what I've heard, it's supposed to be pretty good as well as far as the grandma slice goes. And I'm hoping it's going to solidify kind of everything that I've been speculating here about what makes a proper grandma slice. All right, so I'm here at what's it called? Village Square Pizza. Last stop of the day, probably the last stop of this trip, with another grandma slice. This one's very thin, as you can see. Probably the thinnest one I've had yet. But the grandma slice is kind of what they're known for over here. It said in there it was their most popular, so I'm very curious to give it a try. Obviously, you can see it's got a kind of pesto drizzle along with fresh mozzarella. It's a little bit different than what I've seen at most places. Personally, like I said, I'm usually a bigger fan of when you get a more even distribution of toppings. You can see here when you start biting it, you're only going to be getting sauce. Then you'll get cheese, then you'll get the pesto, but if the flavors are good, I suppose I can forgive that. Yeah, another super good slice. It's kind of funny, I just went down the road to Lindustry, the new location here in the West Village, along with Mama's too, both of which has super long lines. And a place like this, I could literally just walk right in, grab a slice. There's barely anyone in there, but honestly, I might like this better than any of the slices I had at those places. Don't get me wrong, they're all great slices, but there's definitely something to be said about just the simplicity of a classic grandma slice. That super fresh tasting tomato sauce, nice crispness on the bottom. You don't always need to go crazy with the super light and airy, sort of more artisan slices. Even though, like I said, you kind of only get sauce in that first bite, sauce has a really good flavor to it, just like a lot of the other places I've tried. You get that garlickiness, a little bit of oregano. I don't know that they put basil in the sauce itself. It might just be in the pesto, but again, really good, nice crispness. There are definitely a few things I do differently, but it's certainly a super solid slice. Now again, to see my previous trip to New York City where I tried 9 classic New York slices in a day, you can click that video right here. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll talk to you in the next one.